Wales. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much once again for joining Tom and I on your G&T Breakfast Show. Another very busy week for you across Wales and here in Whitland as well.
Oh, that's right. And the beginning of last week, the poor people of Whitland and actually a lot of Carmarthenshire was hit particularly hard. And, I was speaking to people involved in helping the cleanup, and I was able to go and visit, in particular, Whitland, to see and to meet some of the people who've been affected by the flooding. They were telling me this is a 1 in 75-year event. And what happened is you had a really high tide that came alongside a hell of a lot of rain. And, it was really catastrophic for some of those communities there. But what was wonderful was seeing the community come together, the resilience in the public services. They all just, they know how to do this now. The fire service were there. I was asking the council, where do you get boats from to evacuate? Oh, fire service, they all work together brilliantly. And, obviously a lot of people upset that their possessions are affected. And obviously in Welsh Government, we're doing what we can to invest, and to support and to protect people's home. You know what? We invest almost £400 million a year in defending people's homes and businesses in Wales from flooding. But the real problem is that climate change is becoming more aggressive, and we will not be able to protect every home in Wales. And that is really difficult for people to hear, I'm sure. But it is just not possible to stop the sea and the rain, and so we have to learn how to be more resilient and to maybe make sure that we can bounce back quicker if it does happen.
You mentioned there the response of the emergency services. It's amazing that we have them there with their boats, and they're built with the hope that they're never used almost. Yeah. But when they are, isn't it amazing that they can just snap into the situation immediately and help evacuate different homes and bring them to different halls and shelters and make sure people are looked after?
That's right. And, the particular place I went to visit in Whitland, they'd evacuated people from the old people's home there, the sheltered accommodation. And, some of them were they couldn't move very well, but they managed to get them out in the boats and everything. And I've got to pay tribute to the community councils as well around West Wales, who really, really stepped up. They were in there before anyone else and giving shelter, giving accommodation, making sure people were safe and warm. So thank you in particular to those and to all the community that came together at this really difficult time for people.
Yeah, it must be quite a strange role for you as the representative for Mid and West Wales, because in that time, in that moment, you're very limited as to what you can do. But there's almost that expectation that, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go there? Am I in wellies? Am I like, how do you approach that kind of situation when a lot of people, as you say, have had their possessions damaged and they're not sure about when they're going to come in, if insurance is going to cover it? It must be quite a strange one for you to enter.
Yeah, well, most of it's in the preparation. So these things don't happen without us, having some kind of foresight. A lot of what you do in government is not seen because actually it's about preparing for situations and avoiding them. And, a huge amount of work in government is about stopping things from happening. And this is an example of that. So, investing over, almost £400 million in flood defences means that we haven't got nearly as many homes being flooded. But, people don't quite see that. And then the other thing is just to make sure that after every event like this, you learn. So you just make sure, right, what can we learn from this? And so, we had really bad storms last year, didn't we, Dara? And, and other local authorities were hit. So what happened there? What did we learn there? Did the Natural Resources Wales respond quick enough? Did they give the alerts quick enough? Are they working closely enough with the local authorities? But I do think that in that moment, my role is to thank the people who are actually doing the immediate work, but not to get in the way. That's the other thing. You've got to get the balance right, because if they're in the middle of an emergency, the thing to do is to keep away, because everybody drops everything when the First Minister arrives, and you kind of think, actually, can you just go and look after that little woman over there? So it is important to try and get the balance right. But, you know, when people have been working really hard, and some of the people I met, you know, they've been up all night, you know, for days on end. And it's just, these people need our support and thanks. They go over and above, and that's great.
Yeah, it was, the community really came together. I live in the Whitland community, and everybody is just thanking everyone, because that's what they do. When you have these things, people will always come together. Teas and coffees, getting people safe. People were evacuated with no socks on. They were looking for socks in the area. People were drying residents' feet, and just making sure that everything everyone was safe and you know, and looked after. And that's what communities do here. And very grateful to live where I live. Yeah.
And I just think, you know, there's a lot of bitterness around and a lot of division. And what's important is we hold on to the good stuff, you know, the stuff that where community really holds together and comes together. And then you see, you know, people at their best. And I just think we've got to lean into that all the time, find the real positives in our communities.
Yeah. And finding the best in people and having the opportunity to thank people. That's what this week's also been about. Yesterday, of course, was Armistice Day. We had Remembrance Sunday, where we think back and reflect and give thanks to those who gave the ultimate price of their life to protect us in wars, past and present. As Representative Mid and West Wales, how have you found these last couple of days in thanking those that have been before us and those veterans?
Well, you know, this year I've had my own little personal quest that I've been looking at. I've been following my family tree, and I've had somebody in my office, her mother has been helping me out to trace the family tree, fair play to her. And one of the things we discovered is that I had an uncle who served in the First World War, and he went to the trenches and was gassed in the trenches. And what happened is he came home, and his mother didn't even recognize him when he came home from the trenches. And he lived for about 9 months after that, and then died. And my mother was always a bit concerned that he hadn't had the recognition that he might have had, because he didn't die on the front line. But actually, my researchers uncovered the fact that actually he has been recognised in St Dogmell's on the new memorial stone. And that was just such a joy to see that. And it's just been lovely to get that personal connection with war. And I think what came home to me is looking at that memorial in St Dogmell's is how many others died from that small little village. And you just think, wow, every community in Wales, every family in Wales was touched by this. And we have got to remember that, remember their sacrifice, and just keep on working towards peace always. And it was a real privilege for me, obviously, to lead the nation as well in the service in Cardiff as well. It's
like St Dogmell's, little village in the north of Pembrokeshire, south of Ceredigion, Broadhaven, where I'm brought up, Little Haven even, they've all got their own memorials. And I think, if my memory serves me correct, there's only 2 villages in the whole of Wales that don't have memorials. There were so many people impacted by those great wars, and everyone would have known someone in that aftermath afterwards, when it was still very much a real thing. And of course, we're still seeing images now bombarded with what's happening in Ukraine in particular at the moment. It's still very much present, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think what's important is not just that we recognize the sacrifice that people have given in the past for us to have our freedom, but also that we recognize the people serving today and people who've recently served and have come out of the army and the armed services. And that's why, you know, it's been lovely this week to meet some of the veterans as well. And I had the privilege of going to visit Woody's Lodge, which is in Ceredigion, near Llandysil. But I've also had a long relationship with the VC Gallery and Barry John and his crew. And, the work they're doing with veterans is transformative. And it was great to hear last week they've had a significant amount of money to help address homelessness with people, with veterans, because they do need specialist support. And in the Welsh Government, we do give kind of priority access in the NHS to veterans who suffered as a result of their service. They get free swimming, for examples, and we're also making sure that every local authority has a link and has a person responsible specifically for making sure that veterans get the care that they deserve. Do you know what I found out this week is that there are in the last census they registered 115,000 people in Wales were veterans. That's a massive number.
Wow. I did not appreciate that it would be that large among our communities. And you mentioned there the VC Gallery and the great work they do. We work closely with them and through paths in the community hour that we have here with the Community Hub. But we also had Tammy from the Royal British Legion on when they launched the Poppy Appeal, talking about the wonderful work that the Royal British Legion do in supporting veterans and their families. There is support out there, because as you mentioned, there is a specific kind of support that comes from leaving that institution and going back into civilian life, as some of my own family are doing. That was their first Remembrance Sunday not being a member of the armed services. It's quite a strange time. Yeah,
and look, the important thing is that we help people with the transition as well, isn't it? Because when you're, I had the privilege of speaking to the Veterans Commissioner of Wales on the weekend, and that transition from a very structured life into a life where you're not being told what to do every day, where you're not organised, that's quite a transition. And sometimes people need a bit of support through that. And obviously a lot of people suffer with mental health conditions as well. And we need to make sure that they've got that specialist service. And sometimes it can be triggered years later. He was explaining to me that sometimes, a firework years later can trigger a memory that takes them back and gives them PTSD and all that. So all of those things, we've just got to remember that actually you do need sometimes to have that specialist service. And the one thing that came across to me in Woody's Lodge and in the VC Gallery is that actually that fraternity, and it is usually the boys who need to come together, that holding each other up is really important.
Yeah. We're going to look at your week ahead, but before we do that, just very quickly, you found yourself down visiting new houses in Saundersfoot. I've just been nudged to say as well.
Yeah. So that was lovely. We're really keen to make sure that there's appropriate and enough accommodation for people, and there's a real issue with housing shortage, and so we're on an absolute mission in the Welsh Government to try and make sure we build and build and build. And, we are working towards a target of 20,000 social homes by the end of next year. And, we're hoping that we're going to reach that target. We're working like crazy. I'm telling you, I'm really kicking them up the bottom to try and get that one. But it's important also to recognise that, the private sector have an important role here as well. And we need to make sure that they're building. And it was great to see some of the homes going up in Saundersfoot, and most of them look like, they're going to be going to local families. And I think that's really important because, it is an issue in Pembrokeshire where there are a lot of empty homes, and it means that locals can't afford to buy and things. So obviously as a government, we've tried to do what we can to intervene there. But, the bottom line is, we need to make sure that local people can afford to live locally.
Yeah. And looking ahead then, between now and next Wednesday, what's on the agenda?
Well, there's lots of things happening. Some of them are confidential, so I can't tell you. So there'll be a little bit of a surprise. But one of the things I'm very much looking forward to is going to speak to the WI on Saturday, Pembrokeshire WI. And I just think it's probably worth just reflecting on, being the first female First Minister in Wales. I guess I feel that weight of responsibility and history that comes with it. And I think what's important is for me to demonstrate that, we can show a government that's compassionate and courageous at the same time. And, we can care, but we can deliver as well. And I just think, that sits at the heart of what I'm trying to do with the government, really promoting fairness and community and putting people first. And what's great in particular with women is, I'm trying to make sure I'm setting a government that's listening. And one of the first things I did was to go out and listen, as you know, and it was the women who came up to me who were telling me things that I don't think they'd have said to a male leader. They were saying things like, what are you doing about women's health? This is an issue for us. We're not being listened to. And so one of the things that we're going to be delivering very soon is women's health hubs across the whole of Wales, really focusing on issues that are unique to women, the period issues, the menopause that just hasn't had the attention it gets. 1 in 10 women suffer from endometriosis. I mean, it's a really debilitating condition, and lots of people just don't even know about it. So just making sure that women are heard, and that we also make sure that there are opportunities for women to go back to work, making sure we expand the childcare offer so that people can pay their bills. Life is tough at the moment. Stuff is expensive. So getting people back into work, childcare costs can be eye-watering. So we're trying to do what we can in that space as well.
Yeah, this morning, funny enough, I was talking with Heather from Liberating Cycles, who's doing more about educating young women in schools about what their body's going to be doing in the future. So looking forward to having a more in-depth conversation with her as through the weeks and months. And also we had Sam Wilsons-Croft from the Women's Institute have progressed. She was on the community hour with Lee 2 or 3 months ago. It sounds amazing. But Gina, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you said that you were going to the WI, all I was thinking was cake. Have you got a favourite cake?
Oh, I think I'm a lemon drizzle woman.
Oh, well, I'm hoping they've got one there ready for you.
Right. Look forward to it.
They should do now. Thank you so much for joining us. Your jam-packed schedule, and you still make time to come on here on the Breakfast Show on Pure West Radio. We really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to catching up with you very soon. And today is roast dinner day also. What are you going for on your roast dinner plate to have before your lemon drizzle cake?
Oh, it's got to be lamb. It's got to be Welsh lamb with rosemary and honey. With rosemary and honey. That's my favourite.
Oh, rosemary and honey.
That's the way to go.
Noted.
You'll have to try that, Tom.
I'm going to. I've made a note already. Thank you so much for joining us. We started off with Mumford & Sons and Hosier, their brand new one, Rubber Band Man. As ever, we're going to have another track from Eluned Morgan after our What's Ons with the Pembroke Coast National Park and a traffic and travel update. What have we got to look forward to?
So we've got David Gray, Sail Away. He's a local Solver boy, so always happy to pay tribute to him.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's coming up to, it's just gone 25 minutes past 8 o'clock. Have a great Wednesday, and we look forward to catching up with you soon.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.